Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the channel. Happy Monday, everybody. I hope your day and your week are off to a fantastic start. We got a new day, which of course means a new NBA player prop video to share with you guys. But first, as always, people, please make sure to go ahead and hit the subscribe button, hit that like button, and drop a comment down below. It helps the channel grow, and it really does mean a ton to us. With a new day and a new week comes some new opportunities to go ahead and make some money. I have 3 single bets to go ahead and share with you guys in today's video, as well as a nice little 3-leg parlay, which we're going to go ahead and save for the end of today's video. So a pretty solid amount of value in today's video, 3 single bets and a 3-leg parlay. We've got absolutely no time to waste. So guys, let's go ahead and dive into today's picks. Jumping right on over to the Outlier screen. Shout out to Outlier, the best sports betting tool on the market and the sponsor of today's video. Guys, if you've been watching my videos, you know I use Outlier in each and every single one of my videos here on the Guy Boston Sports YouTube channel. And I firmly believe, and I'm not just saying this because they're a sponsor, I truly believe they're the best sports betting tool on the market. It consolidates all the data, all the information, everything that you need to make smart sports betting choices and puts it in one pretty easy and convenient place. So guys, if you like the information that I give you guys in each and every one of my videos, make sure to go ahead and check out Outlier. We are offering a 7-day free trial when you use the link down below in the description and the pinned comment as well. You've got absolutely nothing to lose. You try it out for 7 days. If you don't like it, you cancel it. No cost to you at all. But I'm telling you guys, you are going to fall in love with Outlier, and it's going to make you a better sports bettor. So very special thank you to Outlier for sponsoring today's video and all of our NBA player prop videos here on the Guy Boston Sports YouTube channel. And for our first player prop in today's slate, we're targeting the Nuggets-Pacers game, 7 p.m. tip-off. We're going Jamal Murray of the Denver Nuggets over 26.5 points plus assists. Now, this player prop is not available on too many sports books. I'm grabbing it for minus 118 odds over on BetMGM. It is also available over on Bet365 as well as Prize Picks. Now, if you don't use those, if you use DraftKings or FanDuel, you can basically add a point to this to 27.5. And now you're at minus 105 on DraftKings, available on FanDuel, Underdog, and Caesars. The data is not as good, but it's not terrible. You can still rock with 27.5. I still think you're going to be happy with the result. It's a little riskier, but it's literally 1 point / assist. We're playing it on a little bit of a safer side here with 26.5. Again, the data is slightly better with that point removed. Now, the overall season data for Jamal Murray on this player prop, it's not great, but the recent data is pretty solid for the most part. He's cashed this in 6 of his last 10 games. That's a 60% hit rate. Murray's averaging 33.3 points plus assists per game over the last 10 games. You want to go ahead and stretch that data out to the last 20 games for Jamal Murray. He's cashed in 10 of his last 20. That is a 50% hit rate, averaging 29.7 points plus assists per game. And like I said, if you go ahead and stretch the data out to the entire season view for Jamal Murray, it's not great. 46% hit rate on the year for Murray on this line. He's averaging 27.3 points plus assists per game. A lot of misses here, but a lot of close, narrow misses for Jamal Murray. You see 24, a lot of 24s, a lot of 25s, a lot of 26s. He's always in the ballpark of this number, and his season average kind of reiterates that. He's averaging 27.3 points plus assists per game, despite the fact that he's only cashing it in 46% of his games. Now, obviously, he has a couple of really big performances that kind of skew the data a little bit, like we see the 60-point plus assist performance against Portland just a couple of days ago, about a week and almost 2 weeks ago, actually. But yeah, like I said, the overall data, not fantastic, but it's also not the worst we've ever seen. It's not horrific data. Overall, it's just okay / not great. However, despite the overall season data not looking fantastic, we do have some other metrics to look at that kind of show why this player prop is a solid player prop. We have the head-to-head data here. You see each of his previous 2 meetings with the Indiana Pacers. He has cashed the over. Now, both of these matchups did take place last season, so it is a little bit dated. But the Pacers are kind of the same team, and the Nuggets, they're mostly the same team. I mean, there's differences, of course, from season to season, but for the most part, the Pacers, defensively, where they're bad, and we'll get to that in a second, they're still pretty bad. But Murray has had a decent amount of success against the Pacers, 2 big cashes. He's averaging 35.5 points plus assists per game across those previous 2 meetings with Indiana. So like I said, they are from last year, But I do still think the data is somewhat relevant to this year because the Pacers still have the same problems they had last year, specifically with defending the point guard position. And that's really where I love the matchup here for Murray. Now, overall, Indiana this season, 21st in points allowed, 14th in assists allowed, so not a great defensive team in general. But if we narrow it down to just the point guard position, you see 29th in points allowed, 25th in assists allowed, bottom 5 in both categories, which is not very good. Not very good for Indiana, very good for us when we're betting Jamal Murray here. And the Pacers were this bad last year, too. This has been a problem with Halliburton. Great offensive player, defensively, some question marks there. They struggle with defending point guards. That was true of last year. That's true of this year. Murray has had a lot of success. The Nuggets are coming off a really embarrassing loss against the Lakers where they didn't play well. Murray, he did barely miss the over in that game. He didn't shoot the ball particularly well. He shot 6 for 13, but he's also taken, 13 shots. He's averaging 20 shots per game now, of course. He took 36 shots versus Portland, so it kind of skews the numbers a little bit there. But Jamal Murray, like I said, decent amount of volume. He plays about 36 minutes per game. I do think Denver here, coming off that loss to the Lakers, they didn't just get beat. They got whooped by the Lakers on their home court. I do think Denver is going to come into this game maybe a little more juiced. So I do like the spot here for the over. Really solid matchup here for Jamal Murray. Again, you can rock with 27.5 or 26.5. Either one is not a bad spot. I'm going with a little bit of the safer route and going with the over at 26.5 for our first player prop. All right, guys, and our second pick in today's slate comes from the Miami Heat Atlanta Hawks game, 7:30 p.m. tip-off. We're going Kel'el Ware of the Miami Heat under 12.5 points. We're getting this one for -125 over on DraftKings. It is available on multiple sportsbooks for varying odds. So as always, guys, make sure to shop around for the best odds available to you guys. It's very important to do that. That's where you can find some really good value in these player props. The data is certainly in our favor here for this player prop. He's cashed it in 8 of his last 10 games. That's an 80% hit rate, averaging 8.6 points per game over his last 10. Go ahead and stretch the numbers out. The entire season view, an 80% hit rate, 32 out of 40 games this year. He's cashed the over, averaging 8.57 points per game. Now, it should be noted the first half of the year numbers, he was barely playing. You can go down below to the minutes here for the rookie here. Yeah, you look at the early part of the season. I mean, he was barely touching 10 minutes a game through the first half. And then as the Jimmy Butler saga kind of went on, he sort of blossomed into a solid young big, and his minutes have definitely jumped over the last 15 to 20 games. Now, all that being said, Kel'el Ware had a really solid run right here in the middle of January. He had that like 3 or 4 game stretch where he had, 25 versus San Antonio, 20 versus Portland, 22 versus Milwaukee. Then he kind of fell off versus Brooklyn, but then immediately answered back with 19 versus Orlando. He was on a really solid stretch there where we're like, man, Kel'el Ware has arrived. Since then, he's kind of quieted back down. He has a couple of big performances here and there. You see 17 points versus Chicago on February 4th, 17 points versus Dallas on February 13th. So he still had some good games here and there, but definitely as a scorer at least, I'm not talking rebounds or defense or anything else, but as a scorer, he's come back down to earth after what was a pretty solid couple weeks for him back in the middle of January. The thing that's encouraging for me in this player prop is the fact that he's playing a ton of minutes and he's still not cashing the over. Look at their last game just yesterday, by the way. They're playing on the second night of a back-to-back. He played almost 37 minutes last night versus Milwaukee, and he finished with exactly 12 points. He finished 1 point off of the mark. But he played 37 minutes in that game and couldn't break 13 points. So, again, Milwaukee and Atlanta defensively versus bigs, they obviously rank differently. But the fact that he's playing all these big minutes in some of these spots and just, not even coming up close. Look at 27 minutes versus Boston. He finished with 8 points. 21 minutes versus Toronto, finished with 4 points. I mean, some of these teams are not very good defensively versus the center spot. So I like this spot. Looking from a head-to-head standpoint here, again, not a lot of data. He is a rookie. He's played Atlanta once this year back on December 28th. He had just 4 points in the game. But again, hard to go off of that data point because he only played 10 minutes in that game. So again, a lot of these numbers is tough to get a read on because early in the year, he was barely playing for Miami. He plays a lot of minutes. I just don't think that really matters all that much. He's just not a huge scoring threat for this Heat team. Versus centers, Atlanta this year, there are 22nd, so it's kind of a bad spot for the under here. But they have a Kongwu, they have Clint Capella. I think between the two of them in this spot, they should be able to at least slow him down. Again, he could maybe get close to the line. I just don't envision him having a massive scoring performance, especially coming off the second night of a back-to-back where he played a ton of minutes yesterday. I do like the under here for Kelaware. So that's the second player prop in today's slate. And my third and final single bet of today's video is actually a plus money play. We're targeting the Timberwolves Thunder game, 8 p.m. tip-off. We're going Anthony Edwards of the Timberwolves over 6.5 rebounds. We're getting this one for plus 110 over on BetMGM. It is available for plus money odds basically everywhere except for FanDuel, where it's at minus 106. Again, remember how I talked about value and finding the value in the odds? That's kind of a big thing there. You can get it for plus 105 on DraftKings, but minus 106 on FanDuel. There you go. To quote the dad from my big fat Greek wedding, there you go. Pretty good prop, though. Despite the fact that it's a plus money play, the recent data is solid. Overall data, not so much. Anthony Edwards has cashed the over in 6 of his last 10 games. There's a 60% hit rate, averaging 6.9. I'll go ahead and pause for the applause. 6.9 rebounds per game over his last 10 games. Now, the fact of the matter is, this is probably a little bit of an elevated line because of matchup, because of recent performances. It's a little bit elevated, which is why the data doesn't look as great from an overall standpoint. Although, again, the recent data, the last 10 game data, seems to be okay. Even if you want to go ahead and narrow it further to the last 5 games, you see 3 of his last 5. He's cashed the over, averaging 6.8 rebounds per game. But yeah, the overall season view, not very good. Say 34% hit rate this year on this over for Anthony Edwards. 19 out of 56 games he's cashed the over, averaging 5.88 rebounds per game this season. Again, this line is definitely a little bit elevated, probably more commonly at the 5.5 rebound line, which he still would have a lot of misses on there, but it wouldn't look as bad if we went ahead and put it to 5.5, which we can do. 5.5 right now, it is minus 200 on FanDuel, so it's kind of an alternate line in this scenario. But you see a 55% hit rate on the over this year on this line. So that would probably be where the normal line is. Because of recent performances and because of the matchup with OKC, the line is a little bit elevated, but we're getting pretty good value here with the plus money. The reason I say good value, the head-to-head matchup is pretty juicy. You see he's cashed this over in 4 of his last 7 meetings with the Oklahoma City Thunder. That is a 57% hit rate, averaging 6.43 rebounds per game over their previous 7 meetings. And maybe even more importantly, he's played them 3 times this year. He's cashed the over in all 3 games this year. You see 7 rebounds, 10 rebounds just last night. They played each other last night. He had 10 rebounds in that game versus OKC literally less than 24 hours ago. Obviously playing a healthy number of minutes. He played almost 39 minutes last night. Being the second night of a back-to-back, we'll see how that affects him here. But the rebound opportunities have been there. 10 rebound chances, 13 rebound chances. We did not have any numbers for last night's game because it's too recent. However, I'm assuming, considering the fact that he had 10 rebounds, he probably had somewhere in the ballpark of 15 or more rebound chances in last night's game. And look, the Thunder are a fantastic team. They are one of the best, if not the best team in the NBA this season. I know Boston and Cleveland, they have their own claims to stake in that category, but they're definitely the best team in the West by far. But their one real Achilles heel has been their rebounding. They are not a good rebounding team. Overall, they are 23rd in the NBA in terms of rebounds allowed, giving up 45.4 rebounds per game to opposing teams. And looking in the backcourt where Edwards spends a lot of his time, point guards 28th in rebounds allowed, shooting guards 18th in rebounds allowed, even versus the small forwards where Edwards, I wouldn't really say he plays many minutes at the 3 spot, but still 25th in rebounds allowed. So that's a key point here in this spot. All right, guys, that concludes our single bets for today's video. So all 3 of those picks I just gave you guys are meant to be bet as single plays. Now, you can obviously do whatever you want with those. That's the kind of beauty of the show. I give you guys the props and the information. You guys go ahead and decide what you want to do with those. But letting you guys know, those bets I've talked about so far in today's video were meant to be single bets. From this point on, the player props I'm showing you are a part of a 3-leg parlay. We are using DraftKings for this parlay. It's currently, at the time of recording, plus 215 odds over on DraftKings for this 3-leg parlay. Once again, you can do whatever you want. You want to take a leg and use it for something else. You want to bet them as a straight bet. I wouldn't really recommend it because the value, these are alternate lines, not really there. But again, this is meant to be the 3-leg parlay. But as always, you guys can do whatever you would like with the information that I provide. And we are about to hit the 14-minute mark in today's video. So if you guys are still watching at this point, please comment 14 down below. As always, guys, we appreciate those who watch all the way through each and every single one of our videos. It really does mean a lot to us. We put a lot of hard work into all of our videos. One quick little apology here for Saturday. We did get the video out early on time. Unfortunately, there was an audio issue about 12 minutes into the video. It was a 17-minute long video. I did pull it from the slate. I do apologize. I know some people were upset about that. I just don't want to leave a video up that's not good quality. You know what I mean? Like 12 minutes were solid, but that last 5 minutes, and somebody actually pointed out, was actually a pretty good comment. Said I sound like a Decepticon, and I literally do. I sound like a robot in the last 5 minutes because the audio, something happened with my mic. I don't know what happened, but I sound like a transformer. So I didn't feel comfortable leaving it up. I took it down. We struck the picks from the slate. I mean, I think we went 2-2 anyways, which, we basically broke even, so it is what it is. But, so I just want to apologize for that. All right, with all that being said, let's get back to the picks and break down this little 3-leg parlay we got here. All right, guys, the first leg of our 3-leg parlay, again, using DraftKings here. We're targeting the Nuggets-Pacers game, 7 p.m. tip-off. We're going Nikola Jokic of the Nuggets over 8.5 assists. Now, of course, these being alternate lines, the data is going to be pretty solid on each and every one of these player props. For this player prop for Jokic, the numbers are really good. 9 of his last 10 games, he's cashed the over. That's a 90% hit rate, averaging 10.8 assists per game over his last 10 games. Go ahead and stretch the numbers out to the entire season view for Jokic. A 71% hit rate, 36 out of 51 games this year. He's cashed the over, averaging 10.22 assists per game this year. So really good numbers across the board for Jokic. Again, it is an alternate line, so you would expect it to be good. Narrow the numbers back down to the last 20 games. 90% hit rate, 18 of his last 20. He's cashed them, averaging 11 assists per game. And from a head-to-head perspective, each of the previous 2 matchups against Indiana, again, just like the Jamal Murray prop we talked about earlier in the video, he hasn't played them since last year, but in both those meetings last year, he did cash the over, averaging 9.5 assists per game across those 2 matchups with the Pacers, and the potential assists were there. 15 potential assists the first time, 16 potential assists the second time, so the opportunities were certainly there. Really solid spot, pretty solid matchup. That's the first leg of our 3-leg parlay. All right, guys, for our second leg of our 3-leg parlay, we are going back to the Timberwolves Thunder game, 8 p.m. tip-off, and we're actually going back to the same player, Anthony Edwards, except for this time, we're going over 29.5 points plus assists for Ant Edwards. And again, being an alternate line, the numbers are really solid here. He's cashed the over in 9 of his last 10 games. That is a 90% hit rate, averaging 39.2 points plus assists per game over his last 10 games. So really good numbers there for Ant. If you stretch the data out to the entire season view, a 57% hit rate on this over, 32 out of 56 games he's cashed it, averaging 32.18 points plus assists per game this year. So like I said, really good numbers across the board here for Anthony Edwards. The head-to-head numbers also pretty solid. Kind of the same numbers as the rebound prop. 4 of his last 7, he's cashed the over versus OKC, averaging 28 points plus assists per game across the previous 7 matchups. Now, like I previously mentioned, they did just play last night. He had a pretty big performance, 29 points and 7 assists in that loss to the Thunder. 2 more key things I want to note here in this matchup. Now, OKC defensively, they are a solid team, but I think Anthony Edwards is that good of a player that he can overcome any defense you throw at him here. Let's look at the numbers on days of rest. This is the second night of a back-to-back for Anthony Edwards. The numbers on this player prop really solid. He's actually cashed this over in 7 of 9 games this year when playing on the second night of a back-to-back. So it's a 78% hit rate, averaging 35.44 points plus assists per game across those 9 games, again, which are back-to-back performances. So really good numbers coming off a back-to-back. It doesn't really phase him. And then aside from that data point, I have one more data point to show you before we move on to the final leg of our parlay. The Timberwolves have some key injuries here. No Dante DiVincenzo. Julius Randle and Rudy Gobert, both game time decisions. They were originally declared out. They've now been upgraded to game time decisions, but regardless, just showing you guys the numbers in case those 3 guys don't play, which, by the way, none of those 3 guys played last night. He cashed the over in all 3 games this year when all 3 of those players are out from Minnesota. And honestly, it's not as important if Randle or Gobert doesn't play. It's more about the fact that DiVincenzo is ruled out. You see, he's played 16 games this season without Dante DiVincenzo, and Edwards has cashed the over in 13 of those 16 games, an 81% hit rate, averaging 37.56 points plus assists per game without Dante DiVincenzo this year. When DiVincenzo does not play, it's more minutes for Edwards, it's more responsibility on Anthony Edwards. They don't have the depth for him to kind of sit back a little bit. DiVincenzo obviously takes some of the responsibility off of Anthony Edwards' shoulders there. So overall, pretty good spot for the second leg of our 3-leg parlay. All right, guys, and last but not least, the third and final leg of today's parlay in the final player prop in this video. We're targeting the Hornets-Kings game, 10 p.m. tip-off. We're going Miles Bridges of the Charlotte Hornets over 19.5 points. The data is not as solid as the last 2 player props you just saw, but it's still really good numbers overall. 6 of his last 10 games, he's cashed at a 60% hit rate, averaging 22.6 points per game over the last 10 games. Overall this year, a 56% hit rate on this over for Miles Bridges. 23 out of 41 games he's cashed the over, averaging 20.1 points per game this season. And honestly, if you look at the data, most of his misses came in the first 10 games of the season. Let's look at the last 20 game data here, and you see what I mean. 75% hit rate over the last 20 games, 15 of his last 20. He's cashed the over, averaging 22.6 points per game over the last 20 games. So again, the earlier parts of the season, you saw a little bit more red, but over the last 20 games or so, basically since the Brandon Miller injury, honestly, he stepped up and has upped his scoring in a nice way. Now, from a head-to-head data perspective, he hasn't played Sacramento since last year. However, he did cash the over in both of their previous 2 meetings last season, so we do have that to go off of, averaging 25.5 points per game across those 2 meetings last season against the Kings. And really why I love this player prop is the defensive matchup here that the Sacramento Kings provide. They are 24th in the NBA in points allowed, giving up 116.3 points per game this year. We narrow it down to the forward spot, small forward. Sacramento 26th in points allowed, giving up 22.6 points per game. Even versus power forwards, 24th. So he plays between these 2 positions. Whichever way you want to shake it, it's a really solid matchup for Miles Bridges. Sacramento can't really guard anybody, honestly. And Miles Bridges, who has been scoring a lot, should be able to cash the over in this spot. You go the last time out versus Portland on Saturday. Charlotte got absolutely brutally defeated in that game. They lost by more than 50 points. And honestly, Miles Bridges would have cashed this line in that game had he played more. He only played 23.4 minutes as a result of the blowout. He did have 17 points in that game. He didn't shoot the best, 6 for 14. But again, you see over the last 10 games, he's averaging 19.2 shot attempts per game. He's taking a shit ton of shots because who else is going to take them on this Hornets team, especially with Brandon Miller being out? Miles Bridges and LaMelo Ball. It's basically all they have from a shooting perspective. So I like the spot here for Miles Bridges over 19.5 points. And again, that parlay is a 3-leg parlay for plus 215 odds over on DraftKings. The plays will be down below in the pinned comment to go ahead and tag along. Guys, that is it for me today. Thank you very much, as always, for watching. One more time, please make sure to go ahead and hit the subscribe button, hit that like button, and drop a comment down below. I'll be back tomorrow with another NBA player prop video. But until then, I hope you're all winners. Enjoy your Monday. Let's have a fantastic week, and let's go ahead and make some money.